Yeah, so we've got several developers. Like I mentioned before, a lot of our code is written with unmanaged C++ because it's at the bottom of the stack. And we enable managed code, we're on top of that. Any place where we can write our engine code in managed code, we'll definitely do that. So Reflection, for example, is now written in managed code where it wasn't in the first release.
Certainly.
Yep. So it's got to start somewhere.
I would imagine that, particularly on your team, the distinction between a developer and a tester is really blurred. I mean, your testers must be amazing developers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it in general, in the developer division, right? Everybody's basically a developer. That's why you like working here. So you have that in the first place. But then, as you mentioned, on our team, our test team, we'll go look at the labs in a little bit. When they run suites and things like that, they pull up the bugger and they do the first round of essentially investigation, right? They at least go grab all the call stacks and kind of figure out, maybe grab a dump that we can look at later, and then make sure they pull in the right developer to go look at the other piece. So, yeah, we definitely have a lot of very technical folks, which is great. We'll head down here towards the base class libraries team works down here in this hallway. Looks like Brad Abrams is out today.
But he's got free food.
He's got free food out front, so something good happening there. You guys.
Hello.
This is Kit George, program manager on the BCL team.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. Rolls Corey, Cal and I. Rolls. And
Robert Scoble.
Robert. Hey Robert, how you doing?
Well, you got a quick demo for us?
That's right.
Wicked functionality.
So here we have a demonstration of some new console features. This is Space Invaders. So if we load this up, we get beautiful color console, and as you can see, there's no cursor or anything. You can hide all that. You can draw wherever you like. If we go ahead here and start the game, then you might be able to hear it, but we also have sound capabilities and everything cool like that.
Oh, this brings me back to high school.
That's exactly what we're going for. And I'm displaying here as I would Space Invaders. This is using a whole suite of would-be features, including generics for storing things such as the invaders you actually see in the collection. If I pause that for a second as well, you'll see here that I have a little device. This is a serial port device, and we have some new APIs for communication with the serial port. So if I go ahead and open the connection there, we should get a nice little message that it's ready to go. And then if we continue, I can now use my device to control the guy on the screen instead of using the keyboard. So just hooking in yet another would-be feature.
That's awesome. Can you hook that up to USB?
Yes, you can. You can actually hook up a serial device to a USB port. You actually need a particular kind of interpreter in the middle, but it's just a piece of hardware that you can get easily. So it's very cool.
That's very cool.
Fantastic. So it looks like this is heralding the future of arcade games running managed
Yes.
code.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
How much does that little thing cost to build?
This little device is available from a company called Crystal Fonts. There's their actual logo there. They're actually a Washington company. And it's around about $50. You need to get things like these cables back here as well.
Okay.
But it's going to cost you around about $50.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
So we got a bunch of new cutting-edge features as well.
Exactly.
Kit's got a long list of new stuff with generics. This uses generics actually, so your 1970s or 80s video game using generics.
That's awesome.
But it was actually a very large request from customers to get advanced console support because they have a lot of existing applications they'd like to port over to .NET and make it run.
Exactly.
And of course, serial port is just generically used for so many things.
Exactly. Serial port's been one of the highest requested features that we've had, without a shadow of a doubt. So people continue to ask us about it.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Very
Thanks,
great.
Kit.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Okay, so we'll leave the retro samples and head down towards the performance guys.
And they're going to have a game in the performance office is going to be 5 times as fast as what we just saw.
Yeah, they'll need to, won't they? Yeah, I've seen some pretty cool demos of Quake with C++ that flies along pretty good. So
Sure.
That's pretty cool. There we go. There we go.
I made it back.
Excellent. So the Channel 9 guys.
Hi.
This is Rico Marineri, our performance architect for the CLR.
Said that worse than anyone I've ever
I'm
heard
sorry.
before.
Can you correct it?
It's Mary Annie.
Mary Annie.
That's right.
Sorry, I do that every time, and he keeps reminding me I'm terrible.
Anyway, So you asked me to have some choice words ready.
Yes, what's the Rico words of wisdom
My,
for today?
my words of wisdom. Wait, I wrote them down. Wait, I wrote.
Say right there.
Write everything down. Yeah, a happy face. No, I have to write everything down. Otherwise, I forget under pressure. But I decided that of all the things that I could tell the world, I wanted to remind them that my pithy quote of the quarter, which is engineering is a quantitative discipline, is the one that I want to impress on people. So too many people are making decisions not by the numbers, and if people made more decisions by the numbers, then they would be following all my other advice, which would result in raises for me, by the way. So, so for my own sake, please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was mentioning these guys examples of like the C# serializer issues and things like that. So if you applied your quote to cases like that, just as an example, what do you think that would mean?
Well, I always tell people kind of the same formula. Go back and understand what your customer needs, and then try to decide, well, what benchmarks am I going to make that are going to be sort of representative of the way my customer is going to use my product, or the way my library is going to get used, or whatever it is that you're building. And then when you go back and have to make design choices, like, you know, how much should I serialize, when should I serialize, which service should I use, what should I skip, what should I restore, you know, what should I recompute, you can make the decision quantitatively, because you can go and say, okay, well, my benchmarks that I think represent my customer say if I do it this way, you know, it costs me so much time and so much space, and if I do it this other way, it costs me so much time and so much space, and then you can make a decision on the numbers. But just to do that, then you have to follow lots of my other advice, like you'll need to have measurements, and you'll need to say, well, what are the relevant benchmarks? Maybe you'll do some homework, you know, and you'll have to have an understanding of your customer. Right, that's important too. I mean, it's all about understanding what your customer needs. If you get that wrong, you can't possibly make any decisions.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. People, they start coding. Actually, I guess we're guilty here, right? It's so fun to code in .NET. You just want to sit down and just start coding and coding and coding, and you do this cool thing. And after you've written all the stuff, you think, oh, well, I wonder what my customer needs. Well, maybe I should get rid of some of this, or maybe I need to tune some of this up. When it's harder to code, you want to do the preliminaries, you know, you want to go and do the whatever it is, go and do the modeling, do the diagrams, do the design, you know, write up a document and so forth. And maybe you're less enthusiastic about picking up the thing. You know, I was just writing a friend, and I had to write this declaration for some interop stuff I was doing. And I'm like, what is it? Declspec? What's it? Export with the one? And do I have to use, you know, which Pascal calling convention for this? Or I don't even know. And we have some arcane book to look it up. And you don't have any of that stuff in managed code. You just sit down, you start writing the stuff, and it all kind of hangs together. And whatever service you need, you can just start calling it. And you don't have to worry, oh, where to put the implib and what version, and then, you know, none of this stuff, it doesn't come up.
Yep, sure.
So, you know, you just go.
Yep.
But
Got
the
to pay
good
attention
part,
along the way.
yeah, the good part before was that because you had all that stuff you had to do, there were all these preliminaries, it sort of forced you to think about, well, what am I going to use, and what is it going to cost me, and do I really want to do this? Is this a good idea? You know, when you didn't just kind of blindly go forward doing whatever, whenever, you know.
But I mean, one caveat here is that if performance is something that's critical to me, why would I want to use managed code at all?
You can get great perf out of managed code. You really can. The GC is hard to beat. There's tons of allocation disciplines that people use in the real world. I mean, not like stuff in a lab or something that your CS prof showed you, but like actual stuff that people do, you know, where you're doing UI stuff and you have temporary objects for your messages or whatever else. The GC is just awesome at this stuff. The allocation patterns are great. You never have to worry about getting it wrong. The marginal cost for every alloc is very, very low, you know, so people worry about the GC, but you know, I don't know that that's really the thing to worry about. The kinds of mistakes that people make with managed codes in terms of getting the bad perf are the same kinds of mistake you could make in native code, really. The thing is, the friction, there's so much less friction. Like, we make everything easy, you know? Even stuff that's costly is easy. In one line of code, you can, you know, read a couple meg of XML and extract some stuff from it and, you know, stick it in a control or whatever, and people do because it's easy. And if you wanted to do that, in native code, you'd be going out of your mind. You could do it in one line. You're like, oh, I gotta load a DLL and I gotta delay load, and then I gotta find the import, and then I gotta, what is the beaster thing, and then I map the one to the other, and you would have written 82 pages of code. You never would have done that. It just, there was so much built-in friction, it never even would have occurred to you to do that kind of stuff. So the real gotcha is that it's all so easy. Everything is easy. Even expensive stuff is easy. So you got to be careful. I mean, it's good that everything's easy, right? Because you don't want it to be hard to read XML. Like, oh, congratulations, we made XML so much harder to read that no one will possibly use it, so therefore they'll never have any perf problems with it. I don't want to live in that world. Okay? The point is it's supposed to be easy, but then, okay, now that you made it easy, you also have to kind of, drive responsibly. Like if everyone drove a Formula One racer, like you could go really fast on the highway, that'd be good, but, people would be driving 300 miles an hour. You got to be careful out there. So, you just got to be careful.
Sure. You have to be an engineer.
That's exactly right, and it's not always easy. It's like if you really want, if you want the high perf, you can get there, but you're going to have to apply the discipline and the care that would have been maybe forced down your throat before. But the beauty of it is, a lot of times the perf, you do one-off tools or whatever. The perf isn't going to kill you. You want to prototype some algorithms. You can whip together lots of different kinds of algorithms, find out what's going to work, do 5, 10 different prototypes, bang them out, not have to worry about weird bugs, and then you say, aha, this is the gem. Then you got to sit down and say, okay, this is what we're going to ship my customers. Now that I know what technique to use, how do I build this? How do I build this one in a really sweet way? You don't have to drop the managed code to do that either.
Cool.
But you're going to want to be a lot more careful than you were with those prototypes that you threw away.
And Rico, you got a blog,
I got a
also
blog.
online with a ton of good perf advice.
I got a blog, that's right.
Cool.
And so I'm in the usual place for the MSDN blogs. It's blogs.msdn.com/RicoM. But there's another good place to go to, the PAG. You really want to go to the PAG. Some of our best advice is there. It's msdn.microsoft.com/perf. Really easy to remember. That redirects you to this big, long, awful thing. But just remember, msdn.microsoft.com/perf. Chapter 5 has got lots of great stuff on managed code. I co-wrote that with several folks over there in the prescriptive guidance group, and it's got really, really good thoughts. Lots of other people you talked to today contributed to that too.
Fantastic.
It's a great little doc.
Great.
Go read it.
Great.
All right, thanks
It's
for
an
Thanks for
honor to
coming.
meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Keep up the great work.